charger installed so that our solar panels can charge our car, and then our car
Ooh,
can charge the house. And be the
fancy.
go-between in the case of an outage.
Very nice.
You're just letting 1 or 2 more people in, and then you're all set.
Okay, getting some feedback from you, Rachel.
I will mute.
Oh, yeah, you got to. Mike, I can't recall if we had decided to record this or not.
Oh, it's up to the, well, can't be up to the guests. If Rachel can hear us, I mean, if it's a good archive thing for us, it's okay with me.
Yeah, I think it'd be for an internal archive, but we would not be like posting it on our YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think people are more comfortable these days speaking more freely than having it.
Yeah, we could do no recording. That's good. Admit everyone. Okay. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our Q&A event for the State of the Pinelands. We are now at the end of March, so throughout this presentation, we'll be updating you with anything that has changed since the date of publication, as well as when the calendar year changed. So everything that we covered in State of the Pinelands covers January 1st to December 31st of 2025. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Our agenda for tonight, I will provide a Spark Notes kind of quick overview and some updates of our State of the Pinelands. And then after that, we will take your questions. And on the call tonight, we have my colleague, Dr. Mike Klein. He is our Director of Government Relations, as well as myself, been the Policy Director. Oh yeah. Okay, and I guess my toddler wants to help answer some questions as well. So our State of the Pinelands episode opens with a letter from our Executive Director. I'm sorry, this hair tie. So in that she covers our new name, Pinelands Alliance, and our new logo. And then we have our spotlight issue, in which we focused on the lasting layered protections that are so important to environmental protection in these uncertain times. So since we've experienced so much chaos and changes at the federal level, we found that the Pinelands actually offer an important reminder that strong overlapping protections really matter. So things that may have seemed redundant in the past, we're now seeing that these are actually a real strength of environmental protection. And then we go on to further suggest that another potential layer of protection that we should have is a green amendment to the state constitution, which would establish every resident's right to clean air, pure water, and a healthy environment. And then we end the article saying that it is important to protect the civil servants who protect us. So moving on to our report card for the various agencies that have power in the Pinelands. So first, the federal government, we gave them a thumbs up because the Pinelands Commission funding has not been interrupted, although so many other funding streams have been this past year. But then we gave them a thumbs down for undermining the Endangered Species Act, reversing course on renewable energy, and hollowing out critical federal agencies such as the EPA, Department of Interior, Department of Agriculture, and national parks. However, an update just yesterday, a federal court restored the Endangered Species Act to its pre-Trump status. So we're talking before the first Trump presidency. That might throw into question some of the challenges that were made recently, but that still has yet to be determined. But it seems like the courts are helping to protect this landmark law. And then to the state legislature here in New Jersey, we gave a thumbs up for the bill that proposed to remove farmland from redevelopment eligibility, as well as a bill that proposed to cut off state funding for artificial turf. But then we give the legislature a thumbs down for no action being taken last year to advance the Green Amendment. And the Climate Superfund bill has also been stalled as of the last session, but it's being introduced in this new session, and you might know it now as the Polluters Pay Act. Now, the governor. Of course, we have a new governor this year, so this year's report is referring to last year, the final year of Governor Murphy. We gave him a thumbs up for bills that were signed to control energy costs and expand community solar. And I'm a really big fan of this program. So I put a little box in our State of the Pinelands that highlights this opportunity that everyone has to save on their bills. So whether or not you have a roof that is actually good for solar panels, or you're renting your home, you don't have that decision-making power, you can participate in the community solar program. So really encourage everyone to check that out if that's an option for you. But then we gave the governor a thumbs down for years of inaction to fill a vacant seat. So Ed Lloyd, he was a Pinelands commissioner for over 20 years. And unfortunately, he passed in 2023, and his seat has still not been filled on the Pinelands Commission. However, we give the governor a thumbs up for nominating Bob Jackson. We're a big fan of him and think that he would be a great environmental advocate if he were approved to join the Pinelands Commission. But then we gave the governor a thumbs down for weakening climate resilience rules. This is referring to the New Jersey Pact real rules. But on that same topic, we give the DEP a thumbs up because they did their best and they are implementing this program despite the way that the governor weakened the rules. But an update is that these rules are facing court challenge at the moment by coastal communities, coastal counties, and the New Jersey business. What does that stand for?
New Jersey Business and Industry Association. And,
yes, okay.
There's some other parties to the case as well. I think the Builders Association.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So more on the DEP. We gave them a thumbs up for their successful rollout of the Wharton map, which is controlling where vehicle traffic is appropriate and not appropriate throughout Wharton Forest. But then we gave them a thumbs down for still allowing state funds to be used on artificial turf through the Green Acres program. We're hoping that a bill can move this year that would eliminate that possibility. And then for the Pinelands Commission, we gave them a thumbs up for pushing back against artificial turf. The commissioners have been raising really good questions and questioning if this is really appropriate for the Pinelands. Is it really necessary? And they continue to offer really high quality educational programs and social media engagement. So really recommend everyone check out their Instagram account for all the beauty of the Pinelands that's on display there. They have some really great photography right there on staff. But then we gave them a thumbs down because the list of protected plant species remains outdated. We really want them to have a mechanism so that that can be updated and following the latest science. And this is a different one. Fingers crossed. We see good movement on this front, that they are working on reforms to facilitate accessible trail creation. Okay, and then a few different entities get thumbs up on this particular item. There have been significant actions to protect the Black Wren Preserve. That's in Evesham Township. And an awesome update is that the New Jersey Conservation Foundation announced that it is under contract to be bought and preserved. And this was as of the beginning of this month. And we have multiple people to thank for that. First, the Pinelands Commission, Burlington County, Evesham Township. The Pinelands Commission, they redesignated the headwaters. They limited how much development was possible there, and they committed $3 million towards its preservation. Burlington County, they also committed $5 million. And then Evesham Township has many residents that have been putting up sustained advocacy, which has pushed their township council to work quickly to implement the changes that the Pinelands Commission made. So all these players working in concert has led to that significant victory this past year that this is going to be preserved for forever. Some more local government stuff. We gave a thumbs up to all the towns and counties that passed resolutions supporting the Green Amendment. So this basically just sends a message to the legislature that this is something that we want. And then also a thumbs up to towns partnering with the Alliance to create more accessible trails. But then we give a thumbs down to Winslow Township. Their mayor has been attempting to undermine the Pinelands water protections. And this is actually a big legal case at the moment that we've been waiting for a judge to decide. And a thumbs down to the Southampton Board of Education, who is going to install a new artificial turf field, despite all the new evidence and the high cost that that comes with. Okay, and then we also put a little spotlight on data centers as a very local issue, particularly the water impacts, the energy impacts, the lack of transparency, all these things that have really been amplified in this past year. But a nice update is that as of this last Friday, the Pinelands Commission had a good first formal presentation on this topic. They did a good outlining of where data centers are potentially possible in the Pinelands, what protections the CMP currently offers, and if there are any gaps that need to be addressed. And we launched a petition last week and got over 5,000 signatures. So thank you to all you on the call who might have signed that already. And we're asking the governor for a 3-year moratorium on new data centers. And then we also, in every issue, like to highlight one non-governmental organization who we think is doing really great work. And for this year, we wanted to highlight CRAN, the Climate Revolution Action Network, which is New Jersey's only Gen Z-led climate nonprofit. So this would be people in their teens and 20s. And they were really instrumental in putting the public pressure on to preserve the Black Run Preserve and the headwaters around it. And then we also end with highlighting some individuals who made a difference. So you can read more in our issue about John McPhee, as well as Governor Tom Kean. And of course, we would also like to highlight the difference that all of you make. Thank you to our members for making all of this work possible. And so with that, we will take your questions. Again, that's myself and Mike, who are happy to answer questions for everyone on the call.
Let me add some, thanks Heidi for that really great overview. And we have a lot of thumbs. The cross fingers was a great new icon. There are 3 bills that I'm happy to talk about as well with regard to the data centers. The legislature sent some bills to Governor Murphy. If our State of the Pinelands had come out even later in the year, we could have included what happened in the extreme late dates of the lame duck session. And the governor pocket vetoed some bills that are now, to the legislature's credit, moving very quickly again to get to Governor Sherrill's desk that have to do with data centers, trying to control costs for ratepayers. But we can get into that if people want to ask questions about those.
Okay, so let's see. Is the Q&A function working?
Yeah, if anyone has questions, you can unmute yourself. You should have the ability to do that. Or if you would rather type it in the meeting chat, you can also do that as well.
This is Chris Sturm. I have a question about the data centers bills. I have not looked at them, so I don't know what's in them, but I'm curious, like what parts about the specific parts of the Pinelands that are vulnerable to data centers. I know that a lot of areas are probably off limits because of the comprehensive management plan, land use planning designations. But which zones, if you will, are
It's a great question. Let me. I'm sorry to cut off Heidi. It's not about their location so much as the aquifer underlying the entire Pinelands. In fact, one of the data centers we're most concerned about is technically outside the Pinelands in Vineland, but the aquifer doesn't care about federal and state-made boundaries. So it's a great, depending on how the equipment's going to be cooled inside of that data center has a lot of jeopardy for the underlying water resource that is so important to the Pinelands.
Got it. That's it. That's a really great answer. And will the bills give any recognition to the Pinelands vulnerability?
Not specifically, no. I've been in the committee hearings. We've got terrific colleagues, as we always do on bills like this, with Sierra Club, New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. So it really is a statewide issue. Our concern about the aquifer is distinctive to the Pinelands. I'll say another sister organization of ours, the Highlands Coalition, is equally concerned with that pristine area of the state that's also preserved. They don't have the kind of aquifer, the Kirkwood Cohansky aquifer that we have in the Pinelands, but we've worked with all those groups to get these bills to the governor. But when I talk to legislators, I absolutely highlight the aquifer issue.
Yeah. And at last Friday's meeting at the Pinelands Commission, when they talked about where data centers would even be possible in the Pinelands, I think they highlighted that it's just the regional growth areas and the Pinelands towns where you could potentially build something that intensive. And then if you also needed to tap water, if you needed to make a new well, then that would exclude probably most of the west side of the Pinelands. So you'd be limited to everything on the east. But, you know, maybe with different technology, they could build something that didn't need water. So theoretically, then it would be all RGAs and towns. But towns need to basically actively welcome data centers. They need to pass ordinances that would say that this is a permitted use. So currently, Manchester Township is the only one that we know of, as Monroe Township is in the process of removing that from one of their properties.
And we'll be, oops, okay, I'm not on mute. Yeah, these bills are moving through the legislature. They haven't reached the governor yet, but we at the Alliance will provide updates, blog posts, the wonderful creativity of our communication staff. We'll get the information to you.
So I have a question. And it's disturbing to hear that Manchester is the only town that's allowing AI centers. I'll have to work on that. But my question is about the Green Amendment. It's been in the legislature for, I want to say several, but I think it's even more than several years now. And it just doesn't seem to get the oomph behind it, because it feels to me like there just hasn't been a real coordinated effort. There's been a lot of maybe uncoordinated effort, but is there somebody now, and perhaps it's the Pinelands Alliance, who is taking the lead and helping people to organize at the grassroots level around getting this passed?
It's a great question and a really good observation. As with any piece of legislation, it needs a legislative champion. And our go-to champion on a lot of environmental issues has been Senator Bob Smith from Middlesex County. He's done what he can to get it through his committee, and then it's above his level of leadership is the Senate President and the Assembly Speaker. They need to put it up for a full vote in each of their respective chambers of the legislature. The procedural bonus of the Green Amendment is it doesn't require the governor to do anything. If it passes with the requisite number of votes, it can just get on the ballot, and then it's up to the people to, come out with a majority vote and then actually get that amendment into the state constitution. We share your frustration for sure. It's been heard once in a while in the Senate. It doesn't seem to move in the Assembly. We are actively courting champions in the Assembly. We've gotten, and there's an interesting dynamic with your good observation that it's been around for a while. There are some newer members of the legislature that consider this a real priority. They are going to try to sign on as sponsors or co-sponsors, and then uh, the ones with the members of the legislature we've been talking to have let us know that they're having hallway conversations, quiet meetings with their colleagues to convince them that this is a real priority.
But a follow-up question?
Yeah, sure.
Because it seems like at least the bills that I've been involved in, somebody's taking the lead and saying, call this legislator, because I will bet there are hundreds of people out there that want to move this, but we don't know which legislators to call, or is there a time to call? Is there a, day to come to is there going to be a rally? Different ways, or, I mean, I think of that as kind of the grassroots way of pushing this, but maybe that's not what people want to do with this bill. I don't know.
Well, we've hosted some town halls to try to get some grassroots and interest and some momentum behind it. We met in Camden County last year. We hosted an event, I think, right at our facility.
Yes, you did.
Maya Van Rossum is
Yes.
is the great statewide champion of this.
And the press conference was fabulous, and you had such great people speaking and everybody with the same voice. And then the question is, what's the next step? Who should we call? What should we do with our individual groups, our hundreds of groups around the state? Should we call Maya? But that doesn't work.
No, yeah. I don't have an answer yet, and part of the problem is among this event itself right now, with the number of things we've discussed that are in the state of the Pinelands, including things like the Make Polluters Pay Act. Sometimes there's just I don't want to call it environmental protection fatigue, but there are priorities, and sometimes our advocacy colleagues make a political calculation. The Make Polluters Pay bill is more likely to pass than the Green Amendment, so let's put a bigger push behind the bill that we know we're going to get. So that honestly, that's part of the political calculation of this as well. It doesn't mean we at the Pinelands Alliance are going to give up on it, but I just want to help explain, the legislative dynamic behind why maybe one bill moves and another languishes for years, as you really rightly pointed out. So the real, the specific answer to your specific question is there's no one to call just yet. We need to get the champions lined up. It's still a work in progress on the assembly side, because that's where it really hasn't moved at all, to our frustration, sharing your frustration as well. But we'll circle back to the legislators that we've spoken with, and when we do have a plan, again, our creative and smart communication staff, Rachel behind the scenes, who's supporting this this event right now, Heidi's good writing, and we'll get something out to alert our members to make those calls, and let the elected officials know what your priorities are. So sorry if that sounds like a really political answer.
No, I understand. Thank you.
Relatedly, it looks like we have a question in the chat asking how insulated we are. I assume it says Pinelands Commission, but I assume they mean Pinelands Alliance. How insulated we are from the national politics. And probably for that, I think when there was the funding freeze that happened last January, when grants that had already been promised were no longer flowing, that did impact one of our agriculture grants. But I think that funding has been restored. And otherwise, I think that we just see a shrinking pot of grants and funding available. But at least in the short term, it hasn't impacted our organization very much. Follow-up questions on everything that you were wanting with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Heidi, you froze a little bit there. Oop. So I'll just let me just jump in with the insulated from national politics. From the U.S. senators on down, we've got the terrific bonus with Senator Kim, having been a member of the House of Representatives, specifically within the district that covers so much of Burlington County and the Pinelands. So I think he may, with all due respect to Senator Booker, he may know the issues even better. But the two of them are keep New Jersey from falling prey to the more conservative forces that other states are under. But Heidi's right. We do have funding support just through the alliance of through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Fish and Wildlife. We're working with to try to get wild and scenic designation for the Mullica River, which would bring some funding. I do see a bipartisan issue on that. Not a word you hear a lot these days, but some wonderful colleagues we're working with recently had a meeting with Congressman Van Drew. I think he's going to co-sign a bill along with Representative Conaway. So this all might be premature and I shouldn't have said that, but I'm grasping for good news for you all. So that seems to be a positive development in my email box just today.
Yeah.
So don't tell anyone
I
yet.
saw a comment in the chat about the noise from data centers, and that is something that came up at last Friday's meeting. Commissioner Rittler Sanchez, she raised that, and then we raised that as well, that the noise from data centers is quite unique in that it's just 24/7 and it's very loud. So surely that must have an impact on nocturnal species that are very important to the Pinelands, like the Pine Barrens tree frog and the barred owl. So how would we know that the usual buffer from development would be sufficient for those sensitive species? So that was identified as probably the only hole that currently is in the CMP, because they don't address noise at any point in those protections.
And it's interesting, that issue of noise does not come up in the legislative discussions about the need to certainly study data centers, maybe restrict their development. It's an aspect that the residents living around them know better than anyone, and that needs to be part of the conversation. And to answer another question quickly in the chat from Pat, I don't know the governor's position on the Green Amendment. We tried to reach out to Governor Murphy. We've got the right people now. I'll put in a plug for our relationship with the Department of Environmental Protection. Acting Commissioner, and I hope soon confirmed Commissioner Ed Potasnik is a friend of ours through his former leadership of the New Jersey League of Conservation Voters. His staff is terrific. We've connected with them already. I think the governor's got a really good senior legislative staff. So the contacts are there, but actually knowing the governor's position on the Green Amendment, I don't know. But as I mentioned before, procedurally, it'd be great to have the governor, advocating for it once it gets through both houses of the legislature. But that's something that we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But it really is it's a legislative game rather than involving the executive branch to get a resolution passed through both houses and then become a public question on the ballot to amend the Constitution. It looks like Heidi's having some connection issues. Let me circle back to the good question about our unresolved, the unresolved issues from 2025 that we're looking for in 26. We're talking about them right now. I think the Green Amendment is at the top of our list. Data centers, a fairly new issue that I can't say it was at the top of the list in 2025, but certainly by the end of last year, it was something we were all concerned about. Endangered species. protections, both specifically to what the Pinelands Commission can do and what Heidi mentioned that's happening at the federal level with regulations and changes in language that would really weaken the Endangered Species Act. Those are the top three I can think of. And the Polluter Pay Act is not specific to the Pinelands, but would really help at the end of the day provide a really healthy amount of money for communities to apply for resiliency projects. And that obviously would be a terrific benefit to the communities within the Pinelands that are experiencing, so much more severe flooding, and the coastal communities in the Pinelands that are, facing sea level rise as well. That's the upshot of that. Make polluters pay. It's not just make them pay; it's to pay into a fund that would be available for municipalities to dip into for resiliency projects. So I hope that helps answer the question.
And related to that, it wasn't in the State of the Pinelands this year, but I know that you all have been advocating for more capital funding for state parks. And it seems to me that's like a really important long-term issue. Another like potentially costly issue.
It's as if you were sitting next to me yesterday in the public hearing for the hearing and the NJIT with the Senate Budget Committee. With Jacqueline's leadership, I've been in front of both budget committees, the Assembly Budget Committee, the Assembly Senate Budget and Appropriations Committee. They each have public hearings. Everyone gets 3 minutes. So my 3 minutes was dedicated to funding for parks management. And I pointed out that even under the governor's proposed budget indicates a 50% cut in federal funding that New Jersey used to get for parks management. But our own efforts for the Fix Our Parks campaign, we at the Pinelands Alliance are trying to rev up that, I don't know, I guess you could call it an entity, but there's kind of a neglected website called Fix Our Parks, but it was a campaign that Jacqueline was a great leader of, again, with some of our terrific colleague organizations with exactly that in mind, how to find funding for deferred maintenance. And our arguments in the past were, the 250th anniversary of July 4th is coming. Well, now it's already here. And I can't say deferred maintenance has been addressed at the state parks and forests, where we really hope there's going to be, we anticipate a lot more visitors. And I'd also like to thank people coming for the World Cup, going to games at MetLife in Philadelphia. Pack a lunch, stay for the day, come, visit other parts of New Jersey in addition to the events that you've specifically come for. So that was a real specific issue I mentioned to the committee just yesterday. Deep in the weeds of the state budget is a projection of state visitors to the state parks and forests. And it curiously doesn't anticipate that kind of increase in attendance. There's this very, very small increase for parks management by about $500,000. And I indicated to the committee that just seems inadequate. and the numbers just don't add up. So the testimony is really for the staff. I mean, I gave very specific page numbers in the governor's proposed budget, D-137. So please look at that, committee. So we'll see what happens when the legislature comes up with its final budget at the end of June. But the game is the legislative game, or I'm sorry, the appropriations game is afoot, and deferred maintenance is absolutely something that we're looking at in the near term for this budget, and in the long term through the Fix Our Parks. There is good news. I do like to try to say good news once in a while. There is something that, again, our organization was a champion for before I got to join, but there's a specific foundation. I'm going to say the name wrong. New Jersey State Park Foundation. Yes, the New Jersey State Parks and Open Space Foundation. It was this, legislature passed the legislation. Governor Murphy signed it about a year and a half ago.
Oh, yeah.
I think it still needs to be populated with trustees, but that is supposed to be the state agency that is going to steward a long-term solution to deferred maintenance and, funding for the state parks and forests that can get out of this annual cycle of the state budget. So it's not up and running yet, as far as I know, but it was something that we championed for. Very happy to see the governor sign it, and it just needs to get up and running, let alone raise the money for it and then start dispersing it for what we hope will be. And again, behind the 8 ball already with this semi-quincentenary and the World Cup upon us.
Mike, Ms. Tyler had a question. She said, I live in Hunterdon County. If I am not mistaken, Hunterdon County is not supportive of the Green Amendment. This is surprising given that there is concern about the loss of farmland and other green spaces to development. Whom may I contact in Hunterdon? I assume it would be my local assembly persons. And then do we have any recommendations for specific information that they could send to Hunterdon County officials?
Let me put together, I don't think our wonderful coworker, Stephen Elliott, is on the call. He is our local in-house expert on the Green Amendment, but we can certainly send you.
We have the webpage, and I can pull it up and put it in this chat. I just have to find
it.
And then we can also do a follow-up email, and Steve can provide more information as well.
Yeah, for the people to contact when the question about Hunterdon County not supportive, I'm going to guess that means the county commissioners. It's a Republican county, but it's also, full disclosure, I used to work for Leonard Lance when he was a member of the Assembly before he went to the state Senate and then to Congress from Hunterdon County. And it was, he, as a legislator, won many environmental awards. So it's disappointing to me that the leadership of the county has maybe gotten away from that issue. But if it's the county that's against it, then it's the county commissioners that would need to be contacted. And then I can put in the chat the who the state representatives are. But again, if it's the county is against it, it's more of a county leadership issue. Not the map. District list. I think it's still District 21. I'm sorry, 21. Oh, the numbers have changed. Yeah, District 20. Where do we go? Yeah, here's the list of the legislators in District 20. It's Legislative District 23 that covers the bulk of Hunterdon County. I can't speak to their support or not of the Green Amendment. Historically, Hunterdon County has been really, really good on land preservation and environmental issues. But it's been a minute since I've worked there and lived there.
We have another comment from Pat. If the polluters stopped polluting, we would in time not have the pollution problem. Are any of your members interested in meeting with representatives of the fossil fuel industry?
I'm sorry, our time is up. I gotta go. It's a great question. The honest answer is there are bills, in fact, laws similar to what New Jersey is trying to pass, the make polluters pay. New York passed it, I think Vermont, and it just instantly brought lawsuits from the fossil fuel industry. And their argument is that you can't pin us for damage in any particular state from climate change and prove that it was caused by us. So that's the basis of their legal argument. The withdrawal of the endangerment finding at the federal level, which we can get into if people want to go down that terrible road, but basically it means that the science behind proving that greenhouse gases are in fact a pollutant that can be regulated by the federal government has been now withdrawn by the Trump administration. So that was a good scientific finding at the federal level that the state government could have hung its hat on to make polluters pay bill. I think pass judicial scrutiny. So it just makes our job a little harder. Going into the maw of the fossil fuel industry is a really wonderful suggestion by our members. Sometimes that's a great solution to things. There might be some friendly fossil fuel operators, owners. There was an I'd have to think about it. So thanks for the homework. But
June asked, can you comment on what is holding up filling Ed Lloyd's position on the Pinelands Commission?
Well, I don't want to keep doing all the talking. Did we lose Heidi? If we did, I'll just
still
keep
here,
talking.
but you.
Oh, okay. Let me. Well, it's since he's out of office, I'll just be candid, and the nominating process. Forget about the Pinelands Commission. There was a frustration across lots of state boards, state authorities that required gubernatorial appointees. Governor Murphy's process was just really, really slow. There's a lot of paperwork that is not the governor's fault, any governor's fault. There's a lot of background checks that are conducted by the state police. There are specific applications that have to be filled out. The Senate has its own paperwork to fill out. So it's a lot asking anyone to just be a nominee, to put their life on hold a little bit and, have financial disclosures. So the process itself is not easy. But once we did get a blue chip nominee like Bob Jackson, who is a former mayor of West Cape May, a former member of the Pinelands Commission. He served a 7-year term. When his term was up, Governor Christie replaced him. So it absolutely is not about qualifications of the people we would like to get on the commission. There is an unwritten rule in New Jersey State Senate called senatorial courtesy. There's something similar that exists at the federal level. If you are nominated to a state board, a state authority, a commission like the Pinelands Commission, your state senator needs to sign off on it. And it's even more broad than that because of the way New Jersey's legislative districts are drawn. Anyone, like just when we were talking about Hunterdon County is spread across at least 2, maybe 3 different legislative districts. So all, both or all 3 of those state senators, if we had a nominee from Hunterdon County to serve on the Pinelands Commission, would have to get sign off from all those legislators. So, and that becomes, sometimes you get a quick sign off. Sometimes the state senator wants just a quick little interview. Sometimes it gets really political, and it's got nothing to do with the nominee or their qualifications. If they want one of their own nominees for something, they'll trade that with the governor. If there's a bill they want to move through the legislature, so it gets really, really complicated when it's a member of the opposite party of the governor. That's where it really gets complicated. So the simple answer is politics. The complicated answer is it's New Jersey politics, which is its own brand of complexity. But we love Bob. We've, Ed Lloyd's loss. What we haven't really said so explicitly is that Ed was a giant and deserves to be replaced by someone who's got his level of expertise and gravitas, and that's Bob Jackson. So it's not just finding anyone. It's finding the real right person. It's a really important seat that was held before Ed. It was held by the name Candy Ashman might resonate with some of the people on this call who I had the pleasure of working with probably 30 years ago. She helped found New Jersey Future and just many other accomplishments. So, it's a line of succession from Candy to Ed to an empty seat for the last 2.5 years that just ain't right. So that's part of the. It's not a political or anything. That's just a substance problem that I think we help solve. So we'll just keep being Bob's champion and seeing what we can do.
Thank you. Yeah, and we have a few minutes left, about 8 minutes left. So if anyone else has other questions, you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat.
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that communications are just critical to all of this. And I think that going back to Green Amendment, I'm not going to stay there, but the new way of promoting it and saying it's a layer that we need on top of other layers of protection, I think that really is a good selling point. So I'm really glad to see that. I saw that in the Pinelands Alliance report, and that leads me to say that report was just spectacular. It really is such a great communication device. And then tonight's presentation that Heidi gave for the first 10 minutes was also just a really, really great example of how to communicate clearly. And I think, first of all, I hope we can all have access to that, which I think you said we could at the beginning. But more of that kind of communication will help us get our messages across. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, perhaps I will do a recording of just that presentation, and we can put it on the web of that Cliff Notes version. And thank you all for bearing with us through some technical difficulties. I've got an electrician who's working on my house right now, so I did not anticipate needing to take care of the kids at the same time, but my husband is with the electrician.
And I didn't want to forget, was it June mentioned specifically a faith-based organization that's behind the Green Amendment. We've been working with Water Spirit as well. They have been and continue to be a terrific partner and help support the kind of town halls that we had in Camden. And so the organization that June mentioned in the chat is something I'm going to add to our list of the Green Faith Circle. I'll make sure that we work with you, June, on that.
I had another comment, may I?
Sure.
It's a question. I don't mean to. I was thinking, I don't think Hunterdon County is unique in this. They're trying to preserve what's left of green space from a lot of development. And that requires a lot of energy, probably from the local officials and the assembly, and how to say, well, yes, what you're doing locally is important, but can you put in a word for the Pinelands? And then why would they, how to say that the Pinelands are important? I believe the Pinelands are important, and it takes me an hour and a half to get down there. But how to convince some very locally minded people that say, well, I don't give a fuck about the Pinelands. I just want, I don't mean to be crude.
Well, it's a good observation about what state legislators care the most about, which is their own district. It is very rare, and we've talked about this. We've got Jacqueline, I'm sure would want me to mention our the fairly new political arm that we've created through the Pinelands Alliance. It's called the Pinelands Action Campaign, which under the tax laws allows us to dip our toe, maybe even a full foot, into elections. So we've put out candidate questionnaires in Pemberton Township a couple years ago. We did it a year ago during the gubernatorial primaries to ask specific questions about the Pinelands. But in my many years of working in state government, it's the governor who's got a statewide constituency. U.S. senators have a statewide constituency. Nobody else does. Committee chairs can grasp that and very often take that seriously. It's not just their own district. They're the chair of a particular committee about the environment or transportation, so they take a more statewide view. But to get elected, you need your constituents to come out and vote for you. So their focus is very often on their local issues. So in Hunterdon County, they're going to care about the Highlands, which is great. To get them to come to the take a kayak paddle on the Mullica River, if they don't represent any part of the Mullica River, is a little bit more difficult. If they're a member of the Environment Committee, we can invite all the members of the committee. Just more of my observations about how politics works in New Jersey. It'd be great if everybody cared about the Pinelands, if we could have everyone read John McPhee's book and recognize, this goes back 50 years, at least 60 years, or to have the kind of leadership that Governor Florio showed, Governor Kane, starting with Governor Byrne. But again, I've just named 3 governors. They've got the statewide perspective that legislators just don't by definition.
Okay, we're coming up on the hour, so I think we should wrap it up. Unless anyone has some burning questions, but you can also email myself, Heidi at pinelandsalliance.org, or Mike at pinelandsalliance.org.
Oh, you get Mike
And you
Pippin
can
if you
find
do
it on
that.
our website. Are you sure? Is that not yours?
That's Mike Pippin.
Oh, are you Michael?
I am. Just
Michael
like my mother
at,
named me. There
at
you go.
pinelandsalliance.org.
Mike is also lovely, but he would just forward the
Yes.
messages to me.
Okay, so thank you all. Have a good night. And we look
Yes.
forward to supplying the next report to you next year.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks for taking an hour out of your evening and joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Heidi, thank you.